love you, kitchen gun!
Howdy folks, it's AJ the Hunting Gear Guy. Today I want to talk about sights, SKS Sights to be specific. Now the factory SKS Sight is, it's cool, lets you shoot to, according to the sight, 1 kilometer, so, that's kind of cool. Realistically though, SKS Sights are for close range. They're kind of a plain, flat style, and you line that up with your front sight post. So it's kind of like one of these. They're pretty close together. Like you don't have too long of a sight radius, and that makes it a little bit hard to get super precise aiming. So what you can do is you can go out and get a set of tech sights. Now tech sights transform your blade style rear sight into a peep or aperture, which you then line up with that front sight, and they also extend the range of it, the sight radius, so that it's just a little bit easier to get a nice accurate sight picture, and it adds up to give you some better practical accuracy at range. So it makes good use of what the SKS can do. And it's fairly unobtrusive in how it sits on the rifle. Speaking of unobtrusive, it just kind of sits on the receiver. The key thing here with the tech sights is that they don't hold on to the dust cover. They hold on to the receiver. You can see here that all it's doing, it's got that cross pin and it's got those 4 standoff screws at the back that keep it retained on the receiver. So no matter what your dust cover is doing, it's going to stay solidly affixed on the rifle. Now the other cool thing is that the standard SKS sight radius is right around 19 inches. You take the tech sights and it bumps it out to 29.5 inches. So it's quite a bit longer, quite a bit more accuracy. You're going to be able to get that practical accuracy out of that longer sight radius. Now, Tech Sights offers 2 different versions for the SKS. They offer the TS100 and the TS200. They're very similar. They both have horizontal adjustment available. The TS100 has a non-elevation adjustable rear sight, and it's 2. So it's a flip-over aperture style sight that lets you flip it one for 0 to 200 and the other one for 300 plus kind of a thing. So you can sight them in a little bit differently between those 2. But generally with those, you have to screw up or down the front sight to get your elevation. You can't use the rear sight for elevation. But the rear sight you can use for horizontal, for your windage and that kind of thing. Or you could use the front sight. Both are options. Now the TS200 has an adjustable rear sight, adjustable in terms of elevation. That's what it's got compared to the TS100. So you can choose to adjust that one, or you could choose to adjust the front sight post, or both. Really up to you what you want to do there. Strictly speaking, I guess you could shoot at long range and dial in the elevation using your SKS tech sights. The math is a little bit weird. Every click is 5/8 of an inch at 100, or 5/8 of an MOA, which you got to do like fraction math if you're going to go out a little bit further. So that gets a little bit harder when you think about it. But it is doable, I guess. So for that reason, you might want to look at the TS100. It's a little bit cheaper. I think it's like $14 cheaper than the TS200. Keeping in mind, though, if you do get that TS100, you probably need to get an SKS sight adjustment tool, and what those allow you to do is screw up or down the post in the front, and it's also like a big clamp, and it allows you to push that front sight one way or the other for windage. So to get it, just get that front sight zeroed, right? And then you'd use that flapper rear to pick your distance, whether you're shooting close range or long. Now, there's a couple of things you can do when you're installing your tech sights. One of them, they do include a pin that's got kind of like a groove knocked into it. The other thing you can do is just choose to put that little metal leaf spring in a little bit differently. You can choose not to include a pin, but rather bend it and file it so it fits nice and tight and low in there. The other thing you can do, this is permanent, so don't do it if you want to resell your SKS, but you can groove out a little bit on that rear sight tower as well, just to give yourself a little bit more clearance and to give yourself a better sight picture and a little bit more room on the sights. And this is a tech sight. This one specifically is for an SKS. This is the TS200, and the difference between the TS200 and 100. The 200 has an adjustable for elevation rear peep, whereas the TS100 has a flip over and you do your adjustment on the front sight. So this one has adjustment for elevation there, and it's got adjustment for windage right here. So both of those are adjustable, and the main idea with most tech sights for most rifles is that it gives you a longer sight radius, which can be more accurate when you're shooting at the range. Yet still, they're iron sights. So the idea with this one, this is going to replace that cross pin at the back that that goes through the dust cover. It's got a special little this bolt here that goes into the nut. Stops this screw from going any further in, so it won't apply too much like squeezing pressure, and you should get a consistent remount. And as well, it's got these 4 set screws at the back that also give you, again, that consistent remount. Because the idea here, if we're going to, we need to take this off whenever we need to clean our SKS, which if you're shooting corrosive ammo will be every time you take it out. So it needs to be consistent every time it is remounted. So that's why it's got those set screws. That's why it's got this set screw, I guess, that goes into the nut, because it should give you a consistent reapplication every time. So I'm going to go ahead and install this in an SKS and then take it out to the range. Now, the only thing you need to do that's permanent is that the little latch that goes in has a little nub on it, and you need to grind that nub off so you can take the latch out and you can replace it with this. So do keep that in mind. It is reversible, kind of. You would need to do a little bit of smithing to that that little latch to put it back in and keep it retained. But in any case, I don't really care. I'm going to install this because it's going to be a better rear sight for my SKS. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Now, when you're on the range and you need to make quick adjustments to this thing, there is a tool for it. But otherwise, just use the tip of a bullet. You just need to push in that little button there, and then it's very easy to rotate this thing one way or the other. Why can't I do it? Oh, there it goes. There we go. Rotate it one way or the other. Jeez. Trying to show you guys a pro tip and it's not working for me. And you can see that it's very easy to do that. You can also do that to that rear sight as well if you've got the TS200. So what are some of the pros and cons of the Tech Sights? Well, one of the pros is how low it sits. It sits basically at the same height as your rear sight would normally sit, which means that you don't have to add any cheek rests to this thing, and it'll still be fine. You can still see through that sight very easily. It indexes just off the receiver, so it's nice and solid. It's not going to move. It's not going to jiggle like a lot of the dust cover based optics that you might want to put on an SKS. So it's got that on top of it. And it is a little bit more of a pain in the ass to clean, but not as much as some of the other solutions out there. Now let's just take a look at what it would take to clean this thing. So in order to take it down, normally we'd have a latch back here that we could take off very easily, but now that we don't have the latch, what we'll need to do is just unscrew this this rear receiver screw. So I've got a screwdriver that ratchets. At least it's supposed to ratchet. Come on, there it goes. Well, that's not working very good. I'd prefer if this wasn't a flat, but was rather like, I don't know, anything else. Allen maybe? Allen key would be cool. So now that that's loose, this little piece can come off here, and I can pull this screw out. It's going to be a snug fit in there. There goes my Tech Sight. There's the screw, and I can clean as normal. So should you get a set of Tech Sights? I think that depends on how you want to use your SKS. If your eyes suck, like if you've got really bad eyesight, you might want to go with like a red dot or an optic. Maybe one of those Matador arms rails that sits quite low and uses that pin as well. That could be an option for you. If your eyes are good, I think that this is the way to go. Now, a couple reasons. One, the SKS is never going to give you better than 2 or 3 MOA anyways, so there's no point putting like a 3-9 scope on this thing. You're not going to make use of the accuracy. You're just going to, on your crosshairs, see a bunch of holes that are not quite on the crosshairs, a little bit out. You're not going to lose any accuracy going from an optic to one of these, any practical accuracy anyways. So I feel like this is good enough for the rifle and for the ammo. I'd say it's a good fit. The other, it's nice and low. It's no low snag. It's not going to be like a scope that'll get in the way or anything like that. So that works. A small practical accuracy bump from shooting out of a peep rather than shooting out of the rear sight. So that's an advantage there. And as you can see, it's still quick enough to take down and clean. So no disadvantage there. I think for right around $70, Tech Sights are the right kind of thing to add to an SKS to get better practical accuracy out of it and just enjoy the rifle a little bit more. Thanks for watching.